Okay. I know what you're thinking. It's day 3 of our podcast, and still you're not seeing any Tim. I assure you, Tim is alive and well. We don't have any proof of life with us, but I swear he'll be back in town tomorrow. My name is Dan Gill. I'm the video producer for Right Rudder Marketing, and we're here to do the Aviation Business Podcast. Today we have a special guest, but before we talk about the special guest, I'm going to give us a shout out for our producer, Right Rudder. Right Rudder Marketing is a digital marketing company that works primarily with flight schools across the United States. If you feel that your flight school is running you and you're not running your flight school, definitely reach out to us. Go to the link on there, and then we can sit down or reach out to you and do a consultation to get you in front of your school again. So today we have a special guest. He started out flying a traffic copter in Washington, D.C., and then he finished his 40-year career very recently flying the A330. So without further ado, Joe Gilroy, welcome to the podcast.
Well, it's great to be here, Dan. Thank you very much for that very kind introduction. I don't consider myself that special, but if you say so, I'll take it. Thanks.
So, yeah, before we get into your career, let's talk about your nonprofit. So you're kind of semi-retired, but it sounds like from our conversation yesterday, I don't ever know if Joe Gilroy will ever retire. So what are you working on these days?
You're not the first person to say that. No, I unfortunately had to leave my beloved A330 flight deck March 7th of this year when I turned 65, of course, hitting the mandatory retirement age. But I started Speedway flight training a number of years ago, and with a couple of partners, and we're making a pretty good run of it here at Hampton, Georgia. But I think the emotion I feel the most, and that's driving my pursuits moving forward, is one of incredible gratitude for having a 41-year career at what I consider one of the finest airlines in the world, Delta Airlines. And although I've had to reluctantly leave it, my mission now is to try to find a way to pass forward to the next generation what I enjoyed for the last 41 years. I can't begin to tell you how once again, how grateful I am for that opportunity. So I started the Speedway Flight Training Scholarship Fund a couple of years ago with the aim of identifying youth that are interested in careers in the air. And it comes with some conditions. If you receive the award, you have to commit to go to an aviation university to pursue a degree that's going to get you to a professional piloting position. But the biggest barrier to entry that I've found for especially non-traditional students, and that's my focus, is somebody who has desire but doesn't necessarily have the resource or the mentorship or the backing. We want to find that individual, give him or her a private pilot license, no charge to them, but along the way, give them the mentorship and the support and whatnot to then go on to the next step, hopefully attending that aviation university, using traditional student financing if necessary, and then end up hopefully 40 years from now sitting where I am talking to your successor also.
Right. So you were telling me yesterday that the biggest entry isn't the tuition for the school. The biggest entry is that a lot of these flight programs are asking the students to come with a private pilot certificate. So tell us about that, and then tell us about how your program is helping them kind of on a conditional basis, going through steps to kind of meet that requirement so they can start flying.
Yeah, so as you mentioned correctly, the Embry-Riddles and the Auburns and the Ohio States of the world expect you to show up with a private pilot rating all ready to go, and they'll insert you into their 141 program at the instrument level. So although it's possible to show up with nothing, it's traditionally expected. In fact, that's really the bulk of our students at Speedway is that individual who wants to pursue a professional piloting career. So my concern was that most of these kids, say a kid from a rural high school in Georgia or an inner city high school up in Atlanta that has a desire to do this, they don't have the connections. And I've been a little bit frustrated in trying to deal with some of the guidance counselors
Mhm.
at the local high schools around here. They don't seem to understand what the pathway looks like either to get into flying. When I was a high school student in the late 1970s, my desire was to go to one of the service academies. My father was a career Air Force officer, retired as an Air Force colonel after a stellar career, starting out in the Army Air Corps back in 1944 and during World War II. But uh, unfortunately was not able to secure any sort of military pilot slot back in the day because I had terrible eyesight. I since had
Right.
LASIK surgery. I don't need glasses now, but I had 2200 in this eye and 2100 in that eye. So I was what they refer to as non-rated, which
Right.
meant even if I had gone in the military, I would have not been able to fly. So as desperately as I wanted to attend one of the service academies, I wanted to fly more. So I found out about Embry-Riddle in my the first part of my senior year, and Embry-Riddle was kind enough to send up a guidance counselor or a college counselor to my school, Bishop Ireton High School in the Washington D.C. area, Alexandria, Virginia, and gave me the lowdown on it, and I decided that was the place for me. So the rest is history. I attended Embry-Riddle from
Yeah.
1979 to 1982.
Yeah. Let's go back to your nonprofit just for one more moment. So your nonprofit, and we talked a little about the funding model before, but nonprofits like this, they need funding to help fund the program. If someone wanted to get involved, and this is not what we talked about yesterday, but if someone wanted to get involved in the nonprofit and then had some financing they could throw the school's way or throw the program's way, how can they get a hold of you and how would that work?
Well, they can certainly off the website. We have contact information there, but it's www.speedwayscholarship.com. And we would love to receive the support of anybody that's interested in helping us to achieve our mission. I At my recent retirement party, I had was very gratified to have many of my friends show up, and I sent out a message. I asked them, hey, instead of bringing another bottle of bourbon that I don't need, why don't you consider spending some money on the Speedway Flight Training
Mhm.
Scholarship Fund? And that was a very, very successful outreach. We were able to significantly increase the size of the fund. I have a funding level in mind that I want to eventually get this to the point where it becomes self-sustaining, and the income from the fund can pay for. So I can leave this when I'm gone. I can leave this in perpetuity to my school and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I do want that Speedway flight training itself receives absolutely no benefit from this. Speedway, although we provide the airplanes and the instructors, we do it under our actual cost to deliver. So enrichment of
So
anybody.
another way someone can get involved is by volunteering. Is that right?
We would love to have any volunteer. I seek certified flight instructors that would be willing to mentor one of my awardees. I'd like
Hmm.
to, when the award is received, the first step of the award, as we were mentioning yesterday, not everybody with the desire to do, and there's, it's not the easiest thing in the world to eventually get to
No.
the your flying passengers around the globe. So there's a few qualifications, and this comes from personal experience. We've sought a lot of opportunities to do this for other individuals, and with some level of success. So we've tweaked the program so that the first step in the process is we give the student a Gleim private pilot kit, which will prepare them for the knowledge test. So what I
Mhm.
asked people to do is within 60 days of their start is to pass the knowledge test with an 80% or better. Now, it's not just here's the box, go home and do it. We're going to give you support along the way. You're going to have a mentor instructor that works with you to finish up the uh, um, the knowledge test. But we all know that that's the worst part of the private pilot rating. It's the least fun part of the
Right.
private rating, and it's always the long pole in the tent for every
Right.
of
Yeah.
every.
Tell me about it.
There you go. You got it.
Right. We're gonna
So,
get to those in a minute. We'll pull these out for you after a while.
What that proves to me, though, if that person will do that, commit to that, they've proven that they have
Yeah.
the fortitude to do it, and they prove that they have the academic credentials to do that. So now my confidence is dramatically increased in that individual.
Right,
We've also
because besides the book learning knowledge, which is hard, which is very hard, if you can't get past the book learning knowledge, then you're not going to be a pilot and you're not going to progress through your ratings. So it's not that everyone who comes in a flight training is going to be a pilot, not that everyone who wants to be a pilot is going to be a pilot, which is very important to say as well.
absolutely right. Now, we want to make sure that the right people are in these jobs moving forward. That's very
Hmm.
important. As an allegory to that, also, we also require we sign a contract with the awardee that they're going to remain drug and alcohol free,
Hmm.
that they're going to obey traffic laws, they're not going to end up with any kind of traffic moving violations. They have to show up on time. Absences that are unexcused can potentially jeopardize a scholarship. So we're trying to build a culture of responsibility with these individuals. Because remember, some of them that our target awardee is coming from an environment that's not necessarily as disciplined as
Right.
aviation require them to
Yeah.
become. We're trying to help them be successful. That's the most
Hmm.
important thing. Know they have it in, know they have the capability if they get through our program, but we're just trying to give them opportunity that they wouldn't have had otherwise without us
Hmm.
doing.
Yeah.
After
I was gonna say let's pivot here, and every 10 minutes or so, I'm gonna come on here and kind of give us a little, not kind of a station break, but kind of do a little commercial and then tell kind of people where we're at.
got it.
Yeah. So, my name is Dan Gill. I'm sitting in Tim's seat. I'm the video producer for Right Rudder Marketing. Right Rudder Marketing is a digital marketing agency aimed to help flight schools increase their profitability. As part of that, we have the Aviation Business Podcast, which is how we give back to the aviation community and really talk about aviation. Today, we're sitting down with Joe Gilroy, who's a 41-year commercial pilot veteran who started out flying a traffic copter in Washington, D.C., and then finished out last year on the A330. So now we're back with Joe. So tell us about, one of the problems that we talked about yesterday with aviation is that when you ask a kid what they want to be when they grow up, they'll say, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a policeman or a doctor or a teacher. And because those are all career paths that we see in front of us, not every day, but they're very visible. Pilots are kind of invisible. And because of that, you have to have this personal interaction with it, this personal touch. For me, it was flying remote control gliders growing up. I was almost born at a flying field, but that's a different story. That's a story for a different day. So how are you first touched with aviation? Kind of tell us your roots.
Well, I was very fortunate to grow up in the Washington, D.C. area. That's a picture of me at age 5 in my backyard. My father, career Air
Right?
Force officer, uh, came to the Washington, D.C. area after uh, uh, passing through Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He was an aeronautical engineer by training. He was, in fact, the first class of aeronautical engineers to graduate from the University of Illinois after World
Mhm.
War II, where he met my mother. Um, but he was not a non-rated Air Force officer. Pretty remarkable that he rose to the rank of full colonel '06 before he retired. But I think he passed the love of airplanes and aviation on to me in the gene, because even from this age, all I ever wanted to do was what I got to do. And
Mhm.
I used to, as a kid, read everything I could about airplanes, watch all the old movies. Clock High was my favorite show, and I used to draw airplanes constantly. It was just there was never any doubt in my mind what it was that I wanted to do for a living. In fact, I recall one of my best friends from high school, as I had gotten my first aviation job at public airlines. He said, "You're the luckiest guy I know, Joe, because you always knew." I still have no idea what I want to do, and it's truly a blessing, and that's one of the things with these kids on that scholarship. If we can
Mhm.
help them by something that they're going to have a passion for and want to do early on, it's going to help them to devote that much more attention to that, and more successful, and be that much more efficient in gaining their goals.
Right.
So.
So yeah, so you loved aviation growing up, and then college came up. So tell us about kind of that transition from wanting to do it to doing it.
Yeah, it was a dream come true. Like I said, I tried really hard to get into the military, and even after I was at Embry-Riddle, I kept trying. But with my terrible eyesight, it just wasn't in the cards back in that
Yeah.
day, and the corrective technology wasn't anything like it is today. So I
You
was.
said you hit Embry-Riddle really hard.
I'm
You said
sorry.
you hit the first. You said you hit your education at Embry-Riddle very hard.
I did. I just attacked it voraciously because I was finally getting to actually learn the stuff I wanted to learn. I showed up at Embry-Riddle in 1980, I believe it was, or late in '79, I guess. So I graduated from high school in '79, and I knew I had found a home as I was walking down the parking lot from the University Center to the flight line. Early on my arrival there, a Delta Airlines DC-9 was taking off from runway 7. It was runway 6 at the time. And I stopped to watch that airplane fly by. And as I looked around, everybody else in the parking lot had stopped and was doing the same. Going, hey, this is my people. So
Right.
we're
There
all,
you go.
and but it was just a wonderful experience for me. The mentorship, the professors I worked with. There's to this day there's a couple that were really key to my success and inspired me to be as good as I possibly could. I did have a certain measure of success academically there, and
Mhm.
graduate as the outstanding graduating senior in my class, which was a nice
Yeah,
feather.
but before we got to that, you said you did. Let me go back to this real quick. How many you did? Like how many years or semesters in a row?
So we were on the trimester system. So there are three.
Right.
The year was broken into 3 sections. So I just dove right into it. I went 5 trimesters straight, which as a 19-year-old kid seemed like a good idea, but even I had limits. I just was just incredibly burned out,
Right.
and
That's a lot.
I'd run out of money. I was doing
Yeah.
jobs that I really needed to go back and spend some time not spending money but making a little bit of money. So I moved back to the. I left school for the. My plan was to take 1 trimester off, go back home to my parents' house in Washington D.C., and then return to Embry-Riddle to finish up on time. So I ended up. I always said my first job was as a professional boxer, and
Okay.
but then they made me a cashier. I got a job at a grocery store. I was a bag boy.
Okay.
So, and then during the same period of time, I had plenty of time. I was working at a little airport called Woodbridge Airport, where I refer to myself as a petroleum transfer engineer. I pumped the
Right.
fuel as a line boy. But through that association at Woodbridge Airport, a friend of mine, I remember I was sitting under the wing of a Piper Chieftain, polishing a Piper Navajo rather, polishing gear doors, and my other buddy, Bill Clark was his name. He was an engineering student from Embry-Riddle, was polishing the other gear door. And he goes, hey, you ought to go over and talk to that guy over there. He needs somebody to fly that airplane for him. I said, I have 145 hours. Believe it or not, I had a commercial certificate at that point. I was able to participate in a program where we had our instruments and commercials much faster the typical 141 progress. So he's not going to hire me to do anything. So my buddy Bill got up and walked over. I watched him have a conversation. So the two of them come walking back over, and literally that night, I had my first job flying an airplane for money. It was flying what's called a Skycaster plane.
Okay.
So imagine the Goodyear blimp when the Chiron that runs across the
Right.
side of. Now imagine that apparatus slung across the bottom from wingtip to wingtip of a Cessna 172. It went under the belly through the landing
Yeah.
gear. It was quite a production putting the device on and off the airplane. But inside we took the right front seat out of the airplane,
Mhm.
put in a device that it ran a fabric tape with holes punched in it to make the words, and that ran through an open tub of mercury, which was charged. And then it
Wow.
picked up the sensors on a head that was attached to each of the lights. So that's how we would broadcast the sign. So I spent countless hours flying around the Capitol Beltway, Washington D.C. area in slow flight with a stall horn going off.
Right.
These messages over football fields and outdoor gatherings at night. As kind of an interesting aside, I was over the just to the west of Andrews Air Force Base, speaking to the tower,
Sure.
flying Beltway area, and they asked me to immediately cease my operations. I had caused several accidents on the Capitol Beltway, and the reason is if you looked at the airplane from an angle, because I was going so slow, I looked like a UFO hovering over the field. So I actually saw a Skycaster plane one time, and I completely appreciate the visual deception it creates.
Right.
But from that association with the man that owned that airplane, I ended up as an airborne traffic reporter for Kix 106 radio, which at the time was the #1 country station in the nation. So here I was, a 21-year-old knucklehead, doing on-the-air traffic reports for the #1 country station in the nation. It was
Sure.
WKR Cincinnati was my life for that. It was
Right.
a time. But the net result of that was I ended up returning to Embry-Riddle to finish up my cause career with almost 2,600 hours of flight time.
Wow.
Because
Here, let's pause here. We're gonna do a quick announcement. We're gonna pay the bills here. This is how we do it. You're listening to the Aviation Business Podcast with me, the host, Dan Gill. The normal host, Tim, he is not here right now. He is in good spirits. He is well. He's just taking time off with family. And he'll be back next podcast. Maybe. We'll see. If I do a good job, maybe it'll be me. If I do a bad job, then you'll definitely see Tim in the seat. So we are Right Rudder Marketing. We're an aviation marketing company. We do marketing, digital marketing for flight schools across the country. If you feel that your flight school is running you as opposed to you running your flight school, definitely give us a call, 314-804-1200, or go to our website, rightwittermarketing.com, and reach out to us and help. Today, we have a special guest, a 41-year commercial pilot veteran, Joe Gilroy, and he's telling his remarkable story. If you missed the beginning, definitely watch the repeat on YouTube. If you're in the chat, we have the chat window open in the studio. We also have our producer watching it. If you have any questions for me, hopefully not me, I don't know what you would ask me, but if you have any questions for Joe about his career or about kind of how to get started, or if you know him, or if you knew him at one point, definitely go ahead and reach out. Just hopefully positive stuff, but we'll see what happens. It's a crazy world. Anyway, so we're picking up our story with Joe. He started as a kid flying kind of a box crate in his backyard, and then he flew kind of a Chiron plane, or like a Goodyear blimp style 172 around the Washington, D.C. area. He took his traffic money back to school at Embry-Riddle, and that's where we're picking up the story.
Yeah, I was able to earn quite a decent income doing that on the air stuff with the radio stations. So I was blessed to be able to return, pay off most of my my student loans. I also had incredibly supportive parents. They were generous to me. So I was able to return, finish up my final 3 trimesters at Embry-Riddle, and leave college essentially with no debt, which is, I know, remarkable.
Right.
The car that was paid for. So you may have picked up the last name Gilroy's Irish, and I certainly show the luck of the Irish in everything.
Right. Yeah, the luck of the Irish will definitely be a theme today.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Right. So you finished it. So you came back to Embry-Riddle, and then I forgot where the story goes from there. You were finishing up.
So I finished up at Embry-Riddle, and the radio station contacted me and asked me if I was interested in coming back to the DC area and doing the airborne traffic report again, because we had a certain measure of success with it. I had a certain level of name recognition in the area because I was on the air for quite a
Actually,
while.
let me jump in real quick. So you returned the Embry-Riddle, but how many hours did you have again?
About 2,600 when I went back down there. I was flying almost 8 hours every day. So I would take off 6:30 in the morning, go do two and a half loops of the Capitol Beltway in a 172, and then land. And then I would attend classes at George Mason University, so I didn't get too far behind on my studies. And then I'd take back off mid-afternoon, 3:30, and then finish up 6:30, 7 o'clock at night when the rush hour had died down. But that was every day that the ceilings weren't too low or the wind wasn't too high. So
right. I'm sure it's good practice too. It's not like you're flying around farmland. It's like that's kind of the heart of kind of the tough stuff. So you returned to school with 2,600 hours, but even back then, I mean, how many did you need to be a commercial pilot or to fly commercially and carry people?
Well, it was still, we didn't have the requirements for first officers, but to have an ATP, you still needed 1,500 hours total time. In that whole process, when I was back there doing the traffic report, I did end up finishing up my multi-engine instructor on my MEI, my CFI, my CFII, and I got my ATP rating. That's actually where I was, had my multi-engine, my ATP check ride with an examiner who had done my other two CFI rides. So I had a good rapport with her. Was her name. She was a very interesting young lady, very interesting. But we finished up the ATP ride and we were over at Dulles Airport, and she asked me, "Joe, do you have your multi-engine instructor?" And I said, "No, I haven't done that one yet." She says, "Well, what do you say we swap seats and you teach me how to do a VOR approach and a couple other things going back into Manassas. And if it works out, you'll get your multi-engine instructor too." So I go, "But that's just
okay."
So
no.
and I get on the ground, and it's now this is early in the morning. We had like a 7 a.m. launch on this check ride, and I call a good friend of mine because I need a sign off, right? I don't even have a sign off for the MEI yet. So I call a good friend of mine and who I had done some multi-engine work with. And Laura was her name, Laura Logan. She's a United captain now. I said, "Hey, Laura, could you sign me off for my MEI instructor rating?" And she goes, "Well, sure, Joe. Why are you calling me this early on a Saturday?" Asked me. I said, "Well, because I just took the check ride." And she goes, "Oh, okay. Well, I'll be right out there." And just before she hung up the phone, she goes, "Whoa, Joe, did you pass?" She wasn't going to come out and sign off a failure. So. But again, in keeping with the theme of being lucky, it was a great way to get my MEI also at the same time, and felt a bend, felt confidence. And
so you just to fast forward a little bit, you 2,600 hours, you finished up at Embry-Riddle. You have this opportunity to go back and basically fly traffic, being a traffic reporter in Washington D.C., and then. But that didn't happen.
Yeah. So I was had graduated from college. Wasn't 100% certain what I was going to do yet, but the word got out to the leadership at the radio station that I was back in the Washington D.C. area, and they reached out to me, asked me if I wanted to return as the on-air personality and continue to do the traffic reports. Well, it was a great way to make money, without a doubt, but it really wasn't the type of flying that I was really destined to do. So one of the things I'd always had a passion for was for helicopters, because when I did the first time, I used to my hangar was right next door to the Virginia State Police hangar, and those guys were very generous. They would give me all kinds of stick time in the Long Ranger that they had there.
Oh wow!
So never really got any formal instruction from them, but boy, I sure got bit by the bug. I can tell you about that later. I'm an ATP helicopter pilot now, but anyhow, what I decided to throw out to the station is, I'd be interested in doing this, but would you consider doing it from a helicopter? And the reason
Okay.
we use 72s in the Washington, D.C. market is because it was such a large geographical area.
Mhm.
Most of the any of the piston helicopters were just too slow to cover the area to use traffic reports. So you needed a jet helicopter, something like a Jet Ranger there or Long Ranger, to fly fast enough to cover enough ground to do enough traffic reporting. So I suggested, why don't we look at buying a Jet Ranger? You send me down to Ag Rotors, teach me how to fly helicopters, and I'll come back and we'll use this for the traffic reports in the morning and the evening, and during the day, the news for TV helicopter. And they loved the idea. So we were actually at the point we were at the contract stage. And I went home knowing that this was probably going to happen. I had
here's the bit I was thinking about before.
Yeah, I had a very serious girlfriend who lived in the Detroit, Michigan area. So I went up to see her for a couple of days and visit her parents. Her father was a United Airlines captain, George Spaniel. He's still alive today, just a wonderful man. And he had heard that Zantop Airlines was hiring pilots out at the Willow Run Airport, which is just west of Detroit Metro Airport. But this was back in the days of Lee Iacocca and the resurgence of the American auto industry, and the air freight industry was just booming at the time. So
Detroit was huge. It was like it was huge. That was where cars were made in the United States.
Absolutely. So I hopped in their car, drove out to the Willow Run Airport, walked into the Zantop's hangar, asked to talk to somebody about a pilot job, and they introduced me to a guy by the name of Ed Freitag, who was the hiring manager there. And I told him my story, and I had 2,700 hours or so at the time, but very little multi-engine time. And he said, well, what we typically do is we give you a little bit of an instrument check ride to see if you have the stuff that we want you to have, where we try to put a lot of money in the airplane. So they sent me down to the FBO on the other side of the field and had me fly at one of those Frasca desktop simulators. Essentially, it was just a 170 yoke. And little did I was in the flight simulation department down in Embry-Riddle, and we all the time. So I was able to give a pretty good representation of myself and pass their check rides. So I went back and I walked out of there with a job offer. So I went ahead and went back to the DC area. So now I have a job offer to be a first officer in Santa, and they've got this traffic report deal.
And how old were you?
I was 22.
22. Okay.
Probably 21 would be my guess.
21, 2,600 hours, a job offer in hand, competing for a job that you already had, kind of.
Yeah. So my dad and I sat down, and a mentor, a friend of mine, my next door neighbor, Dave Henderson, he came over, and I said, guys, what am I going to do here? I said, I've got 2 job offers. I don't really know what I want to do. And my dad said, well, you haven't really come up with a contract rate for the traffic report job. What are they going to pay you to do that? You need to know. I go, well, we haven't gotten to that point in the negotiations. He says, throw out a crazy number. And if they take it, great. If they don't, you got your other job to go to. So I went out, and I don't remember what the number was, but it was in the 80,000 a year range, which is a lot of.
And this is like back 1981, right?
Yeah, it was a lot. And there's no they're going to do this. And I remember Bill Sherrard, the station manager, when I threw it out there, he laughed. So I said, well, that's, I tell you, here's the deal. I got this other job, and I really don't know what to do here. And he left me back later. He says, we'll do it. It's like, oh no. The answer I was actually looking for, because I really wanted to be an airline pilot, was my. So went back. Dave and my dad and I sat down again. We had continue the conversation, and Dave asked me the question. He says, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I just, see myself doing circles around the Capitol Beltway in 5 years. He goes, well, Joe, you have your answer. So the rest was history. I told the station that I'm sorry, I've had a change of heart on this career path, and I've got this opportunity to go to Xantop. And boy, what an incredibly lucky decision that was to do that. Because
yeah, let's take a break here, and we're gonna do a kind of a pay the bills. We're gonna do another commercial. If you're tuning in, we're talking to Joe Gilroy, a 41-year commercial pilot veteran of aviation. We're on the Aviation Business Podcast, produced by Right Rudder Marketing here in St. Louis. Right Rudder Marketing is a digital marketing agency that helps flight schools become more profitable. If you run a flight school or know someone that runs a flight school, or more likely, if the flight school is running you and you're not running the flight school, then definitely reach it out to us. Call us on our number here we had on the screen, or go to rightruddermarketing.com. We do free consultations. Bring some tissues along, tell us your stories, and we'll hopefully get you back on the right path. So today on our podcast, we're talking to Joe Gilroy, a 41-year veteran of commercial pilotage. He started out flying a 172, doing traffic reports in Washington, D.C. area, and then retired last year on the A330 with Delta Airlines. So right now we're in Joe's life. We're kind of going through it. It's going to be a longer one today. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to put them in the chat. We'll get to them. Hopefully the questions are for Joe and kind of how to make the most of an aviation career, because if you're thinking about a career in aviation, or maybe you're in it, or you're a CFI and you're looking for the next step, this is definitely the guy to ask. Not me, but this is definitely the guy to ask. So Joe just talked about having a job offer in hand from a small airline in Michigan. I'm sorry, I'm messing this up. A small airline in Michigan, like a commuter. Anyway, a job in Michigan. And then he took it back to Washington, D.C. It was about, we think about an $80,000 offer. And now he has a second offer, basically the same amount of money, to go back to Washington, D.C. and fly basically a traffic plane. So now Joe has to make that decision whether he wants to fly around D.C. or kind of go the next road. So what did you choose? Did you go back to D.C. or did you go to Michigan?
Well, after that fateful conversation with my mentor, Dave Henderson, and my father, asking the question, where did I want to be in 5 years? The answer was, I want to be an airline pilot. I don't see myself driving around the Capitol Beltway, even if it wasn't a helicopter. I just, I have greater ambitions than that. And it was a great decision because I showed up at Xantop International Airlines. It was actually an all freight airline, bulk freight airline, meaning we didn't load things in containers. We loaded everything from Sidewinder missiles to transaxles on pallets sitting in the back, strapped down of a Convair 640, a Lockheed Electra DC-6 or a DC-8. But that was the absolute best thing that could have happened to me as an airline pilot, because I had just come out of Embry-Riddle with a head full of academic knowledge and have essentially no practical experience. So I got to sit and watch some of the finest pilots you've ever met in your life. Now, these were survivors. These were guys that flew night freight for their entire career. And we were the prettiest group. We always called ourselves the best of the worst. But we flew a full airplane, and it was all manual sticker. Most airplanes didn't have autopilots, so you flew Detroit Willer Run down to Brownsville, Texas, 5.5, 6 hours at 240 knots. Hand flying airplane the whole darn way, and all the approaches were hand flown and whatnot. So it was just an incredible experience.
I think our producer Raul, I think he has a picture of the Electra. Raul, if you could show us what an Electra looks like these days. Well, I guess back then. Yeah, well, he's bringing up the picture. Yeah, so let's kind of fast forward from here. So you have this job in hand, and then you end up kind of with another opportunity that comes down the road, right? With the Republic.
Well,
here
yeah.
we go. So here's an Electra. I'm sorry.
Living life loving life, flying for Xantop, but that wasn't. I didn't want to spend my evenings flying freight every night. I
Mhm.
really wanted passenger airline. So one fateful Saturday evening, I was headed out to the Ann Arbor, where I lived. Went to
Right.
sitting at the bar, waiting for two of my other friends who were coming in from flights. Yeah, it's the cockpit of the Electra. There, that was a hoot. Um, and I was sitting at the corner of the bar, drinking a beer, waiting for my buddies to show up. And I was watching a guy getting shot down in flames, trying to pick up a couple of girls on the other side of the bar. And he was giving them, I'm an airline pilot thing, and they wanted nothing.
Right.
So I introduced myself to him, told him what my situation was. He goes, "Oh man," he says, I work for this airline called Republic. We're the amalgamation of Hughes Air West, Southern, and Bonanza Airlines, and but we're going to hire about 60 guys. So if you're interested, you ought to throw in an application." So that was, that's the way we found out about it. There was no internet back then. You didn't
Right.
White House and whatnot. So I had just received, manna from heaven as far as job offers go. So, or job information. So I it just so happens that Monday, my schedule with Antop was to ride a commercial airplane into Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is where Republic was based, and then I was going to fly the schedule straight out of there. So when we had those assignments, we were allowed to go up on any flight we wanted to go up on, and Antop would cover the cost of the ticket, ironically. So I said, "Hey, would you mind? I'd like to go up on an early flight during the day to go up and take care of some stuff." And they went ahead and rebooked me on an earlier flight. So as I'm getting on the airplane to go to Minneapolis, I look into the cockpit of this 727, and lo and behold, the captain in the left seat is a man by the name of Fred Rakunas, who my girlfriend at the time, that United pilot's father's best friend. So he
Right.
recognized each other from different family events and whatnot. And he goes, "Joe, get up here." So I'm in my Xantop uniform and in the cockpit of there. He goes, "Well, just sit up here with us." So he closes the door and away we go to Minneapolis. He told me the whole way what to do, who to talk to once I got to the GO over Republic. And I go, "This is awesome. Thanks, Fred. I appreciate it." So, and what I remember the comment, he said, just walk in there like you own the place. He says, "You're in your
Right.
uniform."
Walking like you in the place. Hey,
So, that's right.
good job.
Security was a little different back then.
Right.
So I did just what he said. I walked through the door he told me to go through, walked down the hallway, third door on the right, turn in there. That's Karen Dampier. She's the hiring manager. And I walk in, and her receptionist or her administrative assistant is there at her desk. And I say, "Hi, my name is Joe Gilroy." And she turns to me and goes, "He's here." He yells back in the office.
Right.
And walking out. And Fred had already made a phone call. He had gotten off the airplane, put an order in a payphone. We didn't have cell phones back then. And called over to Karen and said, "Hey, this kid's coming over. Will you please talk to him?"
Wow.
So we had a wonderful conversation. I had about, at that time, I had about 1,200 hours of Electra time in addition to my Convair from Xantop. And they were really looking for pilots. So I was 23 at the time because I turned 24 right after I got hired. But she says, "Well, we'd love to have you fill out an application." I go, "Well, that's why I'm here. I'd like to get an application." And she hands me the application. I go, "Well, thank you very much. I'll fill this out." And I wanted to type it, make it look pretty. So no.
Right.
So, okay. So
Yeah,
I
you
literally,
cut out, you cut out for a second there with your earbuds. So what was it? You said you wanted to take the application home and you wanted to type it out and make it look nice. And she said,
"No, Joe, you don't have to do that. Just sit here at my desk and fill it out there." So I literally sat at the hiring manager's desk filling out the application and handed it back to her. "Well, thank you very much." And flew the flight back from Minneapolis. And later on that week, I got a phone call to invited me to come up for an interview, and sat down for an interview. And the discussion was more about, this is what it's going to be like when you're working here. It wasn't really a job interview.
right,
Network so incredibly important in this business.
like informational.
How important it is. So I had inadvertently stepped into a beautiful networking situation with my friend Frederick Kunis, who was a very senior captain at the airline, highly regarded by everybody, knew everybody. So I'm sure he had dropped a dime to Bill Hunches, the guy that was in charge of the interviewing and whatnot. So that was, believe it or not, exactly 41 years ago today, May
Wow.
6, 1985, that I started with Republic Airlines down here in Atlanta, Georgia, at the former Southern Airlines training center. So, and I never in 1,000 years thought I'd end my career at exactly the same spot with Delta Airlines through
Right. That's amazing.
of mergers.
But you never really did interview again. You started with Republic. Let me get this right. You started with Republic, and then, well, I'll just kind of break the ice here. Then you went to Northwest because Northwest merged with Republic, and then Delta merged with Northwest. So that was kind of almost kind of your last job interview. Is that right?
It was. Well, I actually had a job interview yesterday back with Delta as a simulator instructor on the A330. So,
Sure. Right.
Delta,
After you retire or retire. Right.
you're right. It was, so I got hired in May of 85, and in February of 86, Northwest and Republic announced that they were going to merge. What had happened was United Airlines had purchased the Pacific routes of Pan Am Airlines. All these airlines, the listeners may not even know what they were, but these were the iconic airlines of the 80s and the 70s. But because United now had these Pacific routes, it put Northwest in jeopardy of preeminent position as the across the Pacific.
Yeah, so your sound keeps cutting out from time to time. I don't know if it's the signal with your iPad or the device.
Let me see what's going on here.
Yeah, just kind of play with it for a second.
I don't have control of my audio video controls anymore.
Okay.
Can you? I think you have them. Can you select the AirPods on that? Or if
yeah, I don't think we can select it on our side.
Or I'll just take them out.
We can figure this out. Yeah, if you could take them out and try to use just your device, I think that might be better sound for right now. I think you can select on Riverside.
Okay, how about now?
That's much, much, much better.
Oh, sorry, guys. That was frustrating.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
So let's cut. Let's kind of forward on. So Northwest acquires Republic, and then you transition from Republic to Northwest. And then I think at that point, you transition from the propeller airplanes to, hold on a second. I'm going to kind of ruin this here. The 727, right?
Well, it was. So I had been flying first officer on the Lockheed Electra at Zantop. And my first assignment after being hired by Republic was that of a 727 second officer. So that was an interesting pathway to how I got to that. So we show up for our ground school May 6th of 85, as I mentioned. And we do our week of INDOC where you learn about the operations manual and things like that, meet all your friends in your class and whatnot. And I was actually scheduled to be in the section of the class that was going to go to the Convair 580, which I thought was actually a great deal because I had already flown the Convair 640 at Zantop. So it was going to be like falling off a log. All I had to do was learn a new engine.
Right.
But so we're sitting in class. I have my Convair 580 manual on the big, thick manual on the table in front of me. All my buddies are in the class, and we're all about to learn about Convairs.
Here, wait a second. Let me pull out something. Is it thicker than this?
Oh, that's nothing. That's nothing. No,
okay, I'll put this away.
The spine of it was literally that thick, and it was 8.5 by 11. So it was.
Yeah,
huge.
I'm trying to compare. Yeah. Put your hands up again.
Yeah, about like that. Yeah.
There you go. So this is this is small, I guess.
Oh yeah.
So I guess you never stop learning.
Everything was pen. There were no computers at this point back then. But so we're just about to open up our books to start class, and Dale Sampson was his name, comes in the room and says, "Everybody close your books, bring your stuff, and come with me." And we're thinking, we're getting furloughed or something.
Right,
so
we're
we
in
have
trouble.
no idea We walk down the hall. He takes us down around the corner. We go into another classroom, and in front of us are all these 727 books, equally thick. But we're going, what's going on?
Right.
Well, he says, this half of the class, which was going to fly Convair's, is now going to be 727 second officers. And the other half of the class that was going to be 727 second officers is now going to be DC-9 first officers. So
Okay.
I got my first upgrade, and I hadn't even been at the airline a week. So ended up flying the 727 as a second officer for about 700 hours or so. And then was able to upgrade to first officer on that airplane while I was still in my first year at the airline, which was the airline was just expanding rapidly. We were doing really well. So I went to school as a first officer on the 727. And interesting story there. We were out in Seattle, Washington, using the simulators at Western Airlines for our training. And the movie Top Gun, the original Top Gun, had come out.
Hold on a second. Just for our viewers, if they haven't seen the movie Top Gun, how would you describe it?
It was we went and watched it during a break. We went to a matinee on a Tuesday afternoon, and we had a simulator session scheduled for that night. And it was the instructor and another student and myself. And we walked back in that simulator. We were so jazzed up after watching that movie. We were like, well, that's the greatest aviation movie I've ever seen in my life. Right. It was an unbelievable experience, and getting to go back in and fly the motion simulator in the 727 after that. But that's when I transitioned to the 727 and flew that around the country for a number of years. And then the merger happened.
Let me pause for a second. Let me ask you this. A family friend of ours made this.
I know what that is.
That guy is?
That's DB Cooper, isn't it?
Right. And he didn't have the livery on the plane, but it was a Northwest plane, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, that was Northwest Airlines in 1971. I was about 10 years old, a little bit before I joined the airline. But yeah, it was something we would hear the legend of DB Cooper at the airline. So that is what's known as a Cooper vein. So if you're imagine the pointy end of the airplane is to our left, okay? So see that big flat oval piece. What happens is when the airflow would blow around that, it would then cause that to rotate 90 degrees. And if you see the rectangular fitting that's right up against the skin of the fuselage, that would rotate and cover up the seam between the fuselage, and that other portion you see is actually the air stair door. So it would prevent the air stairs from being able to be opened in flight, which is how DB Cooper actually was able to leave the 727 that he hijacked. He had a parachute, and he opened the rear air stairs and jumped out, which was a technical possibility then. But that's how they fixed the air stairs from being opened in flight. But it was referred to as the Cooper vein. Right.
Did you hear any stories? I mean, you probably flew with pilots that knew about it.
I did. I'm sure I flew with people over the years that knew about it. I know that some of the flight attendants that were on the flight were still working for Northwest, although I can't honestly say that I ever interacted with them. But it was a big part of aviation history and aviation lore back in the day. But that was about 15 years before I had arrived there.
Right. But so for people who aren't familiar with the story of DB Cooper, just kind of a short story, like what happened and where.
So it was a Northwest Airlines flight. I don't recall where they were headed. It was somewhere in the northern tier, Portland, Oregon, or Seattle, in that region. And he hijacked the airplane. It was long before the days of security when I was able to secrete a gun on board. And they landed. And at one of the stops, he demanded 2 parachutes. And I think it was $600,000 or $200,000. I don't remember the number. And then he wanted the crew to then fly them to another destination. Well, back in the day, it was compliance is what we were trained to do with regard to hijacking. If you 9/11 changed all that dramatically. But back in the day, it was, well, just do what they want, and we'll figure out a time when we can go ahead, and we just don't want him to hurt anybody or hurt the airplane. So they took back off, and sometime over somewhere over the Pacific Northwest, over Western Washington State, I believe, with just the 3 pilots on board the airplane. He walked to the back, and they saw the air stair light come on, and he was gone, and he's never been found.
Right. What's your theory? You know where he is? Like, what do you think happened after that?
Well, just recently, I remember hearing some stories of an individual on his deathbed that he claimed he was D.B. Cooper, and there seemed to have been some validity to the story. But I understand they also did recover some of the marked bills along a riverbank somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. So it's much like Amelia Earhart, probably one of those enduring mysteries that will last for a long time. But
we'll throw that one out. Yeah, so kind of fast forward a little bit. So you worked with Northwest Airlines, and then you worked with various planes, and then kind of Delta Airlines merged with Northwest.
Yeah, so Northwest, so we had a CEO by the name of Richard Anderson, who absolutely a brilliant man, was for a time the CEO at Northwest, and then also the CEO at Delta Airlines. So he understood the value of those two companies and how they could synergize to form a much better airline. Northwest was known for technical expertise, excellent procedures, really disciplined business model, but candidly not very good with customer service. Not a brand that was really as highly regarded as Delta. Delta, on the other hand, excellent customer service. Probably some of the best in the airline industry, a hometown airline feel, whatnot, but not necessarily the best on the things that Northwest was really good at. So he saw that synergy and proposed a merger of those two airlines, and that I was a huge beneficiary of that. So the Northwest Republic merger was a bit more acrimonious. I was the junior member of the Republic Merger Committee for the Green Book side, which was the Republic Airlines side. It was, reflecting on my long career, I've been fortunate to do some jobs that I was pretty good at. But I'm going to tell you right now, that was a job I'm not cut out for. So one of my pieces of advice to anybody that I have an opportunity to mentor is just concentrate on the stuff you're good at, and don't try to force yourself into a role you're not good at. I was thrust into an environment where I needed to learn when to keep my mouth shut and when to open my mouth, and I didn't learn that well.
Right.
I typically had my mouth open when it should have been shut, and I had a lot to learn back then, and I was a little too far over my skis in that role. But at the end of the day, we got a merged seniority list, pilot group that really had a hard time getting along with each other. But I have a lot of good friends from both Northwest and Republic to this day, and I'm very proud of the years I spent at Northwest. We turned it into what I think was
sort of fast forward to from Northwest to Delta. The Delta merger was very different, you said.
Very, very much so. The airlines really, it was, in fact, most of the articles you read it would refer, it was a merger of equals, whereas Republic could not have been more different than Northwest. Northwest and Delta were very, very similar. And each brought significant synergies, as I mentioned before. But it was a merger that didn't have nearly the tension or the acrimony that we had at the Republic Northwest merger. I had a tangential role in the merger committee with Northwest, also, or with Northwest Delta. I did some testimony before the arbitration board. I wasn't an actual member of the committee, but I participated in some of it, even though I knew I was terrible at it. They asked me to come back and do it, and I did my part. But anyhow, that seniority list went together a lot better. That's another thing where I really lucked out. I was so junior when the Northwest Republic merger happened. It didn't hurt me seniority wise. And then I was in a position, I had just come into the wide body flying category at Northwest. So when the Northwest Delta merger happened, it didn't impact me either. So I know a lot of horror stories. I have friends at other airlines that have been really hurt in seniority list integrations, but just based on where I was positioned on the seniority list at the time when the mergers happened, it was, once again, the Irish luck had held out for me there. So,
right.
But
so at Delta, you transitioned to the Airbus systems.
I did. So shortly after the merger happened, Northwest
kind of fell in love. That's what it sounds like.
Oh, absolutely. No, well, the after the Republic Northwest merger, we announced that we were going to be the launch customer for the Airbus A320, which was cutting edge technology back in the day. I think Braniff actually ended up getting the first couple of airplanes, but we were very much an early adopter, and I got myself on that airplane as rapidly as I possibly could as a first officer. I think that would have been probably 1997 or
Mhm.
so. There I am with my good friend
There you go.
Jean-Christophe Lair, who's a test pilot at Airbus. We are in the process of accepting a new A330-900 for Delta Airlines. I ran that delivery program for a period of time. So we would go over to Toulouse, France, at the factory, and then we would fly the airplanes and do an acceptance test flight on the airplane, make sure they were ready for service. But Jean-Christophe is a highly regarded test pilot at Airbus, and I'm happy to say is a good friend of mine. I've become very close with he and his family.
Yeah, what's it like? So did you work as a test pilot also for like Delta and Airbus, or you were the one who accepted? How did that work? Did you accept the plane for Delta, or?
So test pilot is a bit of a stretch to call me that. I haven't attended any formal test pilot school, but
Mhm.
I over the years, because I had such a voracious appetite for technical geeky stuff, especially on the Airbus,
Yeah.
I made myself. I spent a lot of time and energy becoming as knowledgeable as I could on the flight management system. And because we were such an early adopter at Northwest of the airplane, there was we were still figuring out a lot about how to train the airplane and how to fly the airplane. Even a year or so after we had received the airplanes, the manuals were terrible back then. They were written in what we called Franglish, so there were French manuals translated into English. So they were
Ouch.
they were a bit challenging to the grammar was just a mess in them, and it was a different philosophy for manuals. So I wasn't involved in it, but some close friends of mine were involved in rewriting all those manuals. We ended up actually being very, very good at training it by the end of the decade. But you know, the absolute I consider the zenith of my career was when I served as an A320 aircrew program designee. So I was a simulator instructor, but I was an FAA designee. I could issue type ratings on the airplane. But the team
Wow.
of people I worked with were just the finest people I've ever met in my life. And we took that program under the leadership of a guy by the name of Rich Kaner, and he's now doing the same thing for Alaska Airlines. He's running their training and standards out there. He's now retired also from Delta, but a brilliant individual who was a great leader who put a team together of people that we just created a fantastic training program. And like I said, the absolute zenith of my career. And the thing I'll always remember is the most fun I ever had. I met my now wife at the same time. She was
Ah,
what we call an aircrew training instructor in the program out there, and we've been together ever since. But so a lot of
you
good
said you
stuff came out of
became,
that time in my life.
yeah, you said you became kind of a, I don't know what like a technical expert on the FMS for the A320. And how
So
did you
that's
get
it.
that? Like somehow
So
you got a book,
yeah, so I was
right?
flying the A320 into Phoenix, Arizona, and we had a
And
jump
then
seat
not that,
rider.
not that we're going to compare again, but I know
It's
this will
getting
come up,
it's a little bit thicker than that, but about the same size. But
right?
a guy by the name of Ron Dietrich was an engineer for Honeywell, and that Honeywell was the manufacturer of the FMS, the flight
Hmm.
management system on the Airbus. And I was frustrated because those Fringlish manuals were really hard to find. There's things that the FMS was doing I couldn't understand what it was doing. So I asked Ron. I said, Ron, by any chance, is there a pilot's guide or something for this
Right.
thing? Is yeah, there is, but
So
it's like
a pilot guide, what are you thinking? Like, are you thinking like, hold on a second. Are you thinking like this size?
yeah, it's still thick like that. It was just a little smaller. It wasn't as big
Right.
as the. In fact, the 727 manual, we used to call it Bob for Big
Oh
Orange
no.
Book.
Okay.
So
Wow.
just describe the size. But anyhow, Ron says, yeah, there's a manual. It's written by it's at a technical level, but we sell them. They're about $600 each. And I'm like, oh, I can't afford
And this
that.
is what year?
So this would have been 1997 or so.
So it's like at least
Yeah,
$1,200 today.
it's quite a bit of money, and I was
Yeah.
a ne'er do well first officer on the A320. But anyhow, we exchanged business cards because we hit it off, and I ended up uh, uh, going home, and a couple of days later, a box shows up in my mail, and it's a Airbus A320 manual. In fact, I probably still have it sitting on my bookshelf over here in the back
Right.
somewhere. But I then, being the geek that I am, with a cup of coffee on a rainy Sunday afternoon in Toledo, Ohio, where I lived at the time, I was based in Detroit. I sat down and I read that book from cover to cover.
Man.
And I was the only guy at the airline that had done that. So now because I know why it's doing that, or hey, try this because I read it in the book.
Sure.
Who would have ever thought reading something you'd learn? So
Right.
because of that experience, I sort of became the go-to guy on the flight management system in the training department, and we were transitioning from the Honeywell version of that FMS to the Thales Avionics version of that FMS. So I was asked to lead that. That was in 2001. Pardon me. And I started that project. Went over, picked up the first airplane, and brought it back. And I'm going to tell you right now, it was a disaster. It was not ready. It had not been properly tested. It was an absolute mess. So what Thales did is they sent an engineer by the name of Lionel Vereau, who is to this day is one of my closest friends.
Cool.
He came to Minneapolis, moved from me. He was an engineer on the FMS, and he and I would spend hours upon hours in simulators late at night with actual FMSs plugged into the racks down there, and I would say, well, Lionel is doing this, and he goes, but Joe, this is the way it's supposed to work, and
Sure.
but Lionel, we don't want it to work that way. We want it to do this, and so the two of us in collaboration, spending probably close to a solid year working on that together, ended up doing a lot to turn that FMS into probably the best FMS that Airbus has ever had. It's certainly the standard now. In fact, I still actively serve as a consultant for that FMS with Thales. I'm a marketing consultant. I represent Thales with other airlines around the world, convincing them that it's the Airbus FMS that they want in their selections as opposed to the other one that's available. But it was and that was one of the things I also pass on to kids these days. If you find something you're interested in this career path, look for other ways to make yourself valuable. Become an expert on something other than just flying the airplane. There's a plethora of things you can do, be it the radar system, be it the flight management system, be it a procedure. Find something that you want to be recognized as the go-to person on, and it will pay you back in spades. It requires some significant effort, some creativity, but it's very easy in this career to become brain dead. That was one of the things that I always would warn my first officer OE students, especially on the A330, because it was such. None of the jobs were easy, but it was such a predictable job that it was very easy for somebody who wasn't very disciplined. I shouldn't say it wasn't
Right.
diligent enough to stay in the books and to stay current, could easily become less than proficient. Excuse me, become less than proficient when they're just sitting over there droning down over the Pacific, because they get so
Right.
few opportunities to take off and land. So that's a good way to insulate yourself from that, is become
Right.
relevant and become
So
an asset for your airline.
right. So we're about the hour and 10 mark, and we've kind of tackled kind of the breadth of your career, just about. So starting out with the 172 and kind of going to the Electra turboprop, is that what it was?
It was, yeah, it was
Yeah.
that was kind of the zenith of the turboprop era. It was
Yeah.
introduced by Lockheed to be a short to medium haul 100-passenger airplane using four 501 D13 Allison engines. So if you're familiar with the Navy submarine hunter, the P3, that was a variant of the Lockheed Electra, or the ubiquitous C-130. It was a C-130 with a wing on the bottom, is another way
Okay.
we refer to the airplane.
Yeah.
But it
So let me
was
jump in here, but yeah, like starting out with the propeller turboprop and then ending up with, kind of what we would consider a modern aircraft. It's got the larger bypass fan engine on it. It has the modern avionics, and then it has the flight management system. So it's a huge, like basically hand flying the 172 and nearly hand flying the Electra, going to kind of an automated system that, I'm not going to say it's flying itself, but you become more of a management of systems than anything else. I think we were talking yesterday, and one of your professors talked about this, like in 1981, that
Yep.
you will not. What was the quote? You won't be a pilot. You'll be
a systems manager. Yeah. When I
Yeah.
showed up for day one at Embry-Riddle, the president of the university, Jack Hunt, who believe it or not, his claim to fame, he was a blimp pilot in the
Wow.
U.S. Navy, held some endurance records in airships, and but he was a real visionary, and he addressed my incoming class, and he said, for you pilots out there, he says, you won't be pilots as pilots are in the traditional sense today in your career. You will be systems monitors, and your job will be to make high quality decisions, more so than to show the world what your stick and rudder skills are. And I was like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm going to wear the white scarf and the goggles, and I'm going to, I'm going to do my barrel rolls over Lake Washington and things like that. And, I ended up my career. I was on the development team at Northwest for the 787, and also the development team on the A350 at Delta Airlines. And those two airplanes, the technology in those airplanes is remarkable. They're wonderful airplanes and whatnot. But I was one day droning along over the Atlantic or the Pacific, and I was thinking about, that thought came to my head, and I said, darn it, Jack, you were 100% right. I don't fly this airplane. In fact, we have ways to track pilot performance, and I shouldn't say pilot performance, pilot behaviors using there's a box on board called a QAR, quick access recorder, that is kind of like a super duper black box, and we can see which pilot is flying and the stick movements, this, that, and the other. And the airline would give you that information back, and you could see your own flights and whatnot. It's really cool. I wish I could have kept it active after I retired, but they don't let you do that. Right. But anyhow, they did studies on that, and the average amount of flight time that a pilot was getting on the A330 from takeoff to touchdown. Let's say you took off, you flew for 10 hours. The amount of time the airplane was not on the autopilot on average was just 6 minutes. So that's not a lot. So I always made a point to always hand fly the airplane up to 18,000 feet before I turned on the autopilot. And I would turn it off, usually leaving 10,000 feet, because I didn't want to be that 6-minute guy. I think I had my number was up around 18 minutes, even with that much additional flying. So, but Jack was 100% right. We're systems monitors, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because the most important thing that an airline pilot does, or any pilot does, is operates the aircraft safely. So if we've offloaded our gray matter from flying the airplane, managing stick and rudder, becoming distracted with that, we have the time to make better quality decisions. I think that's one reason why flying helicopters is so challenging, because you don't have but most helicopters, in fact, all the helicopters I've had the pleasure to fly, don't have autopilot systems. So you're actively involved with your both feet and both hands at the same time, and you're trying to change radios and make
There's
decisions.
not a pause. You can't just glide. It's
100% right. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. We were talking. I had a friend whose father was a banker, and he was teasing me about the compensation level that for airline pilots, and I asked him. I said, "Well, Fred, why do you get paid so much money?" Fred Szewski was his name. He said, "Well, I'm a banker, Joe. I get paid a lot of money to be a banker." I said, well, Fred, what is it that they pay you to do? He goes, they pay me to make good decisions, Joe. And I said, Fred, it's exactly the same thing. I get paid to make good decisions. I fly the airplane for free. That's the funnest part of doing this job, is flying the airplane. But safety obviously is paramount, but I always like to return the greatest value I possibly could for my employer. I wanted to get that airplane from point A to point B as
Mhm.
efficiently as possible for well, comfortably for my passengers. I didn't want
Right.
to expose them to turbulence and whatnot, but then I wanted to do it at the lowest possible operating cost for my airline.
Well, let's talk about safety for a second. You started out flying the Electra, and then basically you really flew really more hardcore on the 727, and then finished your career on the A320, A330.
230.
How has safety between the 727 and A320, A330 series? How has that changed? Like, what have you seen as an industry change on that?
If you look at the history of accidents throughout the years, I remember back in the 70s and 80s, it was tragic how many airliners we were losing. There were
Mhm.
crashes, and there was a crash in the Washington D.C. area where they flew into the side of a mountain on an approach into Washington Dulles, and wind shear accidents were a very common thing. I shouldn't say common, but not an uncommon thing back in the day. But and I'm happy to say now, when you look at the history, the safety record of airlines now, it's rock solid. I mean, the
Mhm.
airplanes have become so incredibly reliable. The training has the use of the flight simulators for high fidelity training and high quality training has helped so much. It's really become a remarkably safe system. You back in the day, you didn't have the kind of autopilot quality that we have today. And the 727 was basically it would hold your altitude and it would hold your heading. Sometimes it would track a VOR. But it was pretty much all you do was flying headings. Now the flight management system, I can turn the autopilot on at 100 feet,
Mhm.
and then it will fly me all the way to Paris, do the landing, and roll out on the center line without me ever
Right.
touching the controls. But
Yeah. So as we were talking yesterday, you were kind of surprised. A friend of yours mentioned like virtual airlines. Can you talk about that for a second?
so I had no idea that, and again, this goes back to the theme of I fly the airplane for free,
Hmm.
because I always said, I shake my head. The last years of my career, I would leave my house here, drive 25 minutes up to the Atlanta airport, hop in an A330, fly across the Atlantic, go have a fantastic, take a nap, go have a fantastic meal
Right.
somewhere, get up the next morning and fly an A330 back. And I go, this
Mhm.
is just an unbelievable life. Well, I'm told there's a whole network of people that they do that virtually on their computer. They have their own airline, and they'll take off. They'll do exactly what I just described, monitoring the aircraft the whole way, whatnot. And it's not something I've been exposed to, but it's remarkable when you think about this career as something that people do for fun.
Yeah, there's a network that I kind of took part of during COVID. I flew not I think actually I think I flew for Delta for a short time, but they fired me because I come on, man. Like, let's be nice here. Let's be professionals. Let's not laugh at things like this as I get fired from a virtual airline. That's not cool. Hopefully Tim won't see this, because if
Well,
Tim sees this, he'll be like, "You
you
didn't
were
have that
only
on your
virtually
resume,
fired.
dude."
You were only
So
virtually fired.
you have to do a minimum flight. You have to do like one every month or so. And I got distracted. I was doing other things. I didn't do the minimum, and so they fired
Wow.
me.
Wow.
But during COVID, I learned how to do commercial flying. Well, sort of. It's not the same thing. I'll get in trouble for saying this, but it's not the same thing. But you do the same. You do the same routes as real pilots, and then you'll make the same calls, and you'll program the same things into the plane. And this is on the VATSIM network. So they have volunteer air traffic control, and you have volunteer
Heard
hobbyist
that. Yeah.
pilots. And then,
I've heard that.
yeah, it's just, if you have a chance to check it out, I'm sure you'd get a kick out of it. One of their biggest events is called, ironically, today, it's called Cross the Pond, where about 1,000 of them they'll fly east or they'll fly west. It's kind of
Wow.
like a rolling party for flight sim people, but so
Awesome.
kind of, yeah. So let's talk about the future just for a couple minutes. And what you had advice for me for the future, and kind of what your crystal ball was saying for the future, kind of astonished me, because we were talking yesterday and I was sitting in my car talking to you on the phone, and it was raining here in St. Louis after I got a wire for something in our studio. I forgot even what it was. And I was like, you know what? Aviation sort of wrapped up. We got all the problems solved. We got all the questions taken care of. It's all cool for now. It's not like we're hand flying an Electra from VOR to VOR, not having weather radar, not having an automated system just in case something happened in the plane. And so I'm thinking like all of the great piloting is in the past, but yet, all those answers were solved. But kind of you said something that was really profound to me. It wasn't that we solved everything and everything's taken care of. Like, what's your thought of looking into the future as far as aviation is concerned?
Well, back when I was flying that Lockheed Electra round, or that 727 round, I was looking at that instrument panel and I thought to myself, it just couldn't get more. What else more could a guy want? And then I checked out on the A320, and I remember talking to the OE captain on the A320 when I was a junior first officer. God, man, I just can't believe how sophisticated this airplane is. I can't imagine anything more sophisticated than this. And he says, right. Joe, he says, you got to open your mind. He says, imagine just one solid instrument panel that has all of the information on that one screen. And we're not far from that. He was very prophetic. And there's from there to there now.
Right.
Now,
yeah.
The A350.
Yeah. So Raul, can you go back to this? Can you zoom in a little bit? Like that's all you need. That's the best in the world.
Exactly. But I will tell you this: if there was one airplane I could go back and fly again, it'd be that one right there. It was just such a fun airplane to fly. I really enjoyed the heck out of it. And the learning curve was vertical for me the entire time I was on that airplane because I was learning so much. But if you look at the flight deck of an A350 or a 787, we're not far from that. That's right. An A330-900 there. But I tell you, one of the greatest memories I'll ever have is the cockpit lights all turned down, the northern lights outside of the windscreen, and the lights of that flight deck crossing the Atlantic to from west to east is it's such a sight to behold. It's absolutely unbelievable. But no, I look at the boom jet, and there's supersonic flight without a sonic boom. There's fortunately the aviation and technology attracts the smartest people in our societies. And, this is truly a worldwide economy now. I have many friends over at Airbus in Toulouse and some up at Bombardier and all over the world, some engineers at Boeing and various places around here. And they're going to solve these problems. And now imagine also now the AI revolution and how that's going to help them design and think through problems that would have taken years to do. My father is an engineer. He used to use a slide rule to do his calculations. In fact, this is his slide rule right here.
Wow. Okay.
That he used at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base to design the. Can you see this?
Yeah, you see it. Yeah.
He used this to design the corrugated floor in the C-97 cargo tanker. But this is the computer of the day when my dad was an engineer. And now I literally type the question into ChatGPT and get the answer, for the calculation. It would probably take him many hours to do. But that, it's a never-ending treadmill. As I mentioned early on, I'm just so incredibly grateful to have had this opportunity. But I'm not so full of myself to think that when I walked out the door, the airline didn't stop. Everything just kept moving just exactly as it did when I was there. And every one of us, we all play a role. You always, one of my mentors at the airline, Gary Hogan, we were talking about why we were instructor pilots and line check pilots and whatnot at the airline. And he actually said to me, he said, well, Joe, I can see it. You want to make a difference. You really do. And the people that I respect the most that I've come across in my career, the pilots that I fly with, are the ones that exude that personality and project that they're so grateful that they're where they are, that they just want to make sure they contribute to it. one of the things that I see today in some of the younger pilots that I've
Mm-hmm.
flown with is a sense of entitlement.
Mm-hmm.
They especially those that were hired during COVID because there was such a disruption in the industry, their pathway into the flight deck, although mine was really rapid, but I worked pretty darn hard to do that. Now I'm not saying that the kids today that are coming in aren't doing that. I see them in my flight school. I'm doing everything I possibly can do to support them and help them get here. But please don't lose that sense of gratitude, and please don't lose a sense of the fact that this job is so special, and it is the greatest job on the planet. And don't call in sick when you're not sick because you want to play golf and it's a sunny day. And don't think that just because you called in sick on Christmas, it didn't have an impact on somebody else that had to now go out and fly the flight routes. Just be humble, be grateful. When you're junior, fly the trips you're supposed to fly. It's all going to come to you one day. And the other thing I always told people is you just don't get stressed out about this stuff. It always works out. And it really, really does. I just don't, there were some long days and some hard days, but all of them were good days. And it's to have had the opportunity to do this. I thank my God that it gave me the skills and the timing in my life to enjoy this. And now my mission moving forward here, I mentioned that I'm going to be an instructor on the simulator now on the A330. Yeah. That's a part-time job. I do it because I want to give back. I love the airline that I work for. I'm so grateful for the career that it gave me and the ability to do financially in my life what I've been able to do. I never thought I'd enjoy what I have, but I want to share what I can with the next generation of pilots. That's why I have this flight school. I started it as a flying club back in 2016 with two other like-minded Delta pilots, Huey Harris and Glenn Fink, both good friends to this day. And Huey and Glenn moved on to bigger and better things. Huey's a professor over at Auburn now, and Glenn runs operations for a corporate operation up in Indianapolis. But I've stayed behind. I was the youngest of the three and morphed Speedway or Happy Goat Flying Club into Speedway flight training.
Yeah, we have your website up right now.
Well, I appreciate that. We're based in Hampton, Georgia. Now we use Right Rudder Marketing. They've helped us get from where we were as transitioning through the flights, the flying club rather, into the school we are today. We're very, very excited about our future. We're in the process of picking up a significant number of aircraft for our fleet. And we hope to support the aviation community here in the Atlanta area for many, many years to come. I have wonderful instructors that work for me. I see a work ethic in those kids that I'm incredibly impressed by, and I love the opportunity to support them in any way that I can. So that's my mission moving forward. I'm going to try to find that kid that can't afford to fly and get him or her in the cockpit, and then we'll hopefully put him in the jetliner of the future. I received a picture yesterday. I wish I had forwarded it to you, but it was a photo of two of our initial Happy Goat students, Katrina and Preston, that are now flying an RGA together at Endeavor. Preston's the captain and Katrina is the first officer. But
very cool.
It warms my heart to know that we played a role in helping those kids to get to where they are.
Well, let me hold on to you just for one more second. We're going to do one more commercial announcement.
Okay.
We got to pay some bills. And then I've got are you a movie fan when it comes to planes?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to look at some movies, and I'm going to ask you if you've seen them or not.
Okay.
It's kind of a thing I'm doing now. I'll probably not be doing that. I don't know. We'll see. It's kind of fun.
That'd be fine. Yeah.
So we're going to pay some bills. We're going to come back to that, and then I've got one more question to wrap up today. So again, this is the Aviation Business Podcast with your host, Tim Jedrick. Tim's not here today, but my name is Dan. I'm the video producer for Right Rudder Marketing. Right Rudder Marketing is the producer of the Aviation Business Podcast. We're based here in St. Louis, and as Joe was telling you before, we help flight schools market themselves and become more profitable. So if you're not flying your flight school, but instead if your flight school is flying you and you're behind your flight school, we can help you with marketing efforts and best practice procedures. So rightruddermarketing.com. If you want to be a guest on our podcast in the future, where we talk about aviation and aviation stories like we've been talking for the last almost 90 minutes with Joe, send us an email, info@rightruddermarketing.com. So now is a kind of a fun part. We're going to do some have you seen this kind of movie stuff. And these are all aviation kind of things. So here we go. First one, Solo.
Not say that one. Nope.
What? Han Solo. He's a pilot. Come on. We're moving on. Dark Blue World.
I did. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I love that era of aviation. Yeah.
The Polish pilots. There was a newer one made about the Polish pilots. Break your heart, because they would keep the language of the Polish language in the cockpit as they were dogfighting against the Germans. Yeah, and this is like a diaspora of Polish pilots that came over and fled to the UK.
Talk about true patriots. The French had the same. They had the Free French that came over and fought with the British.
This is a romantic comedy. Not really.
Is that the? Oh yeah, I remember that. Absolutely, yeah. That was early 80s, early 90s, I guess was it?
Early 90s. Yeah. Beautiful biplane shots.
Yep. Yep. In set in Africa, if I recall. Oh, of course, of course. That came out when I was at Embry-Riddle, and that was obviously just an iconic movie. You know, to this day we're still using Johnny, have you ever been to a Turkish bath? Type lines. In fact, I had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar not too long ago on the airplane.
Wow.
And I wanted so badly to go back and say to him, or first officer over or whatever. Roger Over was his name.
Right. Are you a pilot?
And I chickened out. I didn't want to do it. We were told at the airline, if you had a celebrity on board, you're not supposed to ask them for autographs or do something like that. I had more than a few celebrities over the years, but I do regret that I didn't go back and say something, come up with some quip for him about that. He might have appreciated it, or at least gotten a picture of him in the cockpit.
That's too bad. Bridge of Spies.
I haven't seen that one. No.
It was about the Gary Powers U-2 shoot down over Moscow.
I did not recognize the name of it, but yeah, that was a very, very interesting story. Tragic that he died in a helicopter crash doing airborne traffic reports, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit before my time. But, yeah. Chicken Run, of course. Yeah, of course.
They built their own plane. Sorry, I have to throw this out here.
Oh yeah. Well, not sort of an airplane movie, but it did involve flying.
Right.
Citizen Kane. Oh yeah, Rosebud.
That's what I'm like on set, by the way.
Yep.
Oh yeah, one
North
more.
by Northwest. Oh yeah, The Right Stuff. I love that book. I devoured that book, and I was a little disappointed in the movie, but the book was awesome.
Yeah, they can't really reproduce the book. So this is the video disc copy. By the way, my CFI,
Blu-ray.
My old CFI has my Blu-ray. So Adam, if you're watching, I want my movie back.
I want it back. Yeah.
There's 2 parts to it.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And then
Apollo 13 was also another iconic movie back in the day.
What was?
Apollo 13.
Right.
Ron Howard. So just a phenomenal cinematography on that.
Right. I had something I was going to ask. I forgot. Oh, yeah. What is today?
May 6th, 2026.
What's the big deal about May 6th for you?
Well, for me, exactly 41 years ago today, I was new hire at Republic Airlines in Atlanta, Georgia. And that is where I sit right now in Noonan, Georgia, just south of Atlanta. I'd never in 1,000 years thought that working for an airline based in Minneapolis, I figured that's where I was going to be the rest of my career. But through serendipity, I ended up at Delta Airlines, retiring, landing at the Atlanta International Airport on March 6th, 2026 for my last A330 flight. But And then ironically, yeah, that was
Like 2025, last year, right?
no, this year, just last month.
This year. Okay.
Yeah, just last. Yeah, that was my second to the last flight there. And Travis Blunt was the first officer, and John Deraney, one of our dispatchers, a good friend of mine, came along. We did a Las Vegas turn. It was a nice day. Travis is a technical pilot. I served as a technical pilot for a number of years, and Travis was one of my coworkers, a technical pilot. And John is a dispatcher for us, a good friend of mine who just recently checked out as an international dispatcher. So he was getting his observation flight on that with us. So it was a nice opportunity. So
very good. Hey, well, Joe, we met at Fasana back in what was it, March this year?
It was, yeah.
And then we had a nice dinner, and then I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today.
Well, I tell it, I'm honored that you guys would think that my story has any importance at all. And this is my last landing, and it was just not the landing I wanted. I had come back from Dublin. I had a bunch of friends on board the airplane, and it was pretty funny. We were set up for runway 26 right. I had some friends that are photographers that were going to video this for me, and they have airport access. And as we're approaching 26 right, the tower assigns us our runway. It says, expect the ILS 26 left. And I go, 26 left? Nobody lands on 26 left. And all the way across the ocean, I'm getting congratulations. The airline lets the controllers know that it's a retirement flight. So it's a really, really nice gesture. I saw some of my ACARS messages, made it onto Reddit and things like that, but congratulating me in my 41-year career and whatnot. But so it was a pretty windy day, and there's a significant amount of burble that comes over those big Delta hangars there. So I was working the wind all the way down, got the airplane straightened out, and the A330 is it's not a hard airplane to land, but there's a little bit of a trick to it because the landing gear are trailing. The rear wheels hang down below the front wheels. As you touch down initially, that first touchdown is pretty easy to get a nice smooth touchdown, but it's controlling the second touchdown that really separates the men from the boys in the A330. And well, I was a boy that day, so I had a pretty firm second touchdown. But again, I all I have is gratitude. It's just been a wonderful ride, and I can't thank you and Tim enough for what you've done for me and my school. And I know we're going to have a long and a happy relationship and friendship moving forward as we make Speedway and Right Rudder both more successful. So I thank you for the time today.
You're welcome. So thanks again for Joe. We're wrapping up today. Once again, this has been the Aviation Business Podcast. We've been on with Joe Gilroy, a 41-year veteran from basically commercial airlines. And he's got a lot of great stories and advice today. If you just kind of tuned in, sorry you missed it. It's been a good time. I would recommend starting at the front and then go through it. Some of the themes that I heard yesterday and I heard again today was, again, these themes of aviation. There's networking. There's being at the right place in the right time. There's putting yourself in those places. There's constantly listening to what people are saying, and then studying and being a resource for other people. So again, this is kind of themes that I'm learning in aviation, and I'm learning from people like you. So
and never take it for granted. We are
right.
1% of the population can fly an airplane, and a very small percentage of that 1% gets to do it at the level that we at the airlines get to do it at. So just always be humble and be grateful about when you get here.
Very good. And we're going to go out on that note today, guys. So this has been the Aviation Business Podcast. I've been your host, Dan Gill. Normally Tim's in the seat, but he'll be back. I swear he's fine. Aviation Business Podcast is produced by Right Rudder Marketing. Right Rudder Marketing, we're a digital agency that helps flight schools market themselves across the country. If you find that your flight school is running you, instead of you're running your flight school, give us a call, send us an email. Our phone number is 314-804-1200, and our email address is info@rightruddermarketing.com. So until next time, We'll see ya. All right. Hey, thanks.